all these rejections from the middle Bollinger Band.
Resistance we're going to need.
If you actually see here, we get a
And we'll look for a healthy higher
I
low.
would not
don't have
be
the
convinced
pullback
to enter a long trade.
Hello crypto friends, hope you're doing well. Got a lot to talk about this video and it's probably going to be a doozy. We're going to look at Bitcoin, Ethereum, EOS, and BNB. And we're going to talk a lot about psychology and contrarian viewpoints because I have been a contrarian for a long time as a trader where everybody's looking in one direction. I start to look in the other direction. And that's just because when everybody is, that's how the market works essentially. That's where we reach the tipping point. I think of things as a scale and supply and demand of shares or coins or whatever it is. And we reach a certain point where that scale tilts. And if everybody's, getting to one side of the scale, it's getting really heavy here. And then when it flips over, it makes a significant shift. So I'll talk a little bit about that. I made a post 4 hours ago on Twitter, which certainly got a lot of responses because it's not the general consensus right now. But the contrarian in me is starting to stir with everyone looking bearish in crypto. And I'll talk about it in the next video. And so what I meant by that is, I'm not looking for any kind of trend change or anything like that. I'm looking for a daily low to be set. And I am looking for a daily trend change in the near-term future. We could absolutely see another leg down. That's entirely possible. I'm not trying to call the bottom here, but I'm saying I'm starting to look in the other direction, and I will begin establishing positions. I'm currently already in a Litecoin position that I talked about in the video yesterday, right before I ended that video. And I'm looking for the daily trend to change, but it's just going to form another weekly lower high. So keep in mind that we already lost support on this weekly time frame, breaking bearish from the equilibrium. But because we were already extended to the downside with already, 4 or 5 red weeks once it broke, we don't anticipate a flush. We're looking for the potential of a bounce and just a weekly lower high. So again, I'm not looking to change any long-term trends. I'm looking for a daily significant bounce to play out. Maybe this is the start of it, but again, we could see another leg down. I have a position just in case this is the start of it, and I'll get out of that position, either break even or a small loss if we do see another leg down, and I'll look to reestablish another position. So why am I thinking in the other direction? Again, everybody, it's just sentiment. So I'm seeing people, we have a lot of members in the trading room. People are starting to question, closing their long positions out of their hard wallets. We're seeing everybody in Twitter just calling for another bear flag. And we, of course, didn't just see a bear flag play out. We saw another big bull move up. We'll talk about why that happened. So everybody was looking at the potential bear flag and another leg down. Essentially, I'm seeing the shorts get a little bit cocky. And that's what happens. We see the bulls get cocky with euphoria on the way to the upside, and we see bears get cocky with despair in the market on the way to the downside. So this is on Bitfinex right now because I want to show the volume profile here. And look at the weekly volume. So the weekly volume has been dropping off pretty consistently for months. And we're going to see a break in this pattern very soon. This candlestick's about to change over next week, and we'll have a new start of volume. But you can say that we're going to see a break in this declining volume pattern sometime in the next couple of weeks. Is it going to be a bear break or a bull break is the question. So unless you're going to say that the daily RSI for Bitcoin is going to dump down into the low 20s, it's possible, but that's what would be required if it's going to be a bear volume spike and we're going to dump down to new lower lows, and that would put us in the mid to lower 5,000 range. At this point, I feel the bears are already too extended to the downside and exhausted. They need to cool things off and see a little bit of a bounce play out. So I think it is a more likely scenario that this volume spike is either, partially bear and then bulls buying a V-shaped dip, or a bull break and a bounce on the weekly time frame to set this lower high. So I'm keeping an eye on the volume. I'm keeping an eye on the shorts chart. So the shorts chart for Bitcoin just earlier today was extremely overbought on the hourly time frame. And I drew this line and I scrolled back and said, when has the hourly RSI been this high? And I could see it has not been this high. It only ever tops out at this level. It was at 92 and only ever tops out there scrolling all the way back to March. So we're talking at this point about 3+ months where the hourly RSI on shorts has not exceeded the level we were at, and here we are pulling back as we just saw some short squeeze on this new leg to the upside that just occurred. So not only am I watching that fact, but I look at the daily chart and I say, when's the last time the shorts were this high? And I can see historically this goes back to September. The shorts have only ever been this high on Bitcoin here on Bitfinex for just a few days here. And I'm looking at essentially April 6th to April 11th, and then we saw an all-out dump. So what was going on April 6th to April 11th on the daily time frame for Bitcoin? We go back, and that's where we had this channel where we absolutely nailed the breakout here, but it was this channel where we had a tightening range forming. So all throughout here, shorts were building and building and building. Meanwhile, the daily RSI is down around 30. We had already been extended to the downside pretty significantly, and it was just a short squeeze, big bull move that led to a weekly bounce. The shorts got too cocky. The shorts were extremely high, and here we are at those levels again, yet the price on Bitcoin, when the shorts were this high previously, where am I going here? There we go. So when the shorts were this high previously, the price was down in the 6,600s. And here we are in the 6,100s, 6,200s with the shorts, again, the second highest that they have been. So in my opinion, the shorts got too cocky, too overextended. This is a small short squeeze. This by no means is a significant bounce at this point. We're taking it one time frame at a time. We got over the 15-minute exponential resistance, so we zoom out to the hourly. We watch the hourly reject from exponential resistance and now blow through it a little bit, so we zoom out to the 4-hour. The 4-hour is now battling exponential resistance. The bulls are trying to see a bull MAC decross, and the question is, can the bulls keep the bears back against the ropes and put on a little bit more bull volume, cause a little bit more of a short squeeze, and get this bounce going in a more significant manner? Because at this point, like I said, this could just be cooling off RSI levels, and we could see another leg down, this daily RSI. Also, the divergence here, there's a bullish divergence in the RSI, which just means the RSI is higher, even though the price is lower compared to just a couple weeks ago, a week and a half ago. So again, I'm just pointing out all the little clues as I started to say to myself, just based on sentiment and talking with people and monitoring Facebook groups and our own chat room, and then looking for these little signs and seeing a couple little signs that say, you know, keep an eye out for the bulls. They could shift this scale here and tilt that momentum. And that's what I'm keeping an eye on, and I'm positioning myself to be able to profit from that with my Litecoin position. And I will potentially enter a new position if I see a setup that I like. But again, at this point, I'm not being aggressive whatsoever. I'm saying this is a maybe. I don't have a ton of conviction in this, so I have a small position to reflect that, and I will potentially build a position if I do see the daily chart give me some further signs. But at this point, I don't have enough to be very confident. So it's just something that's coming to my mind. It's something that I'm thinking out loud when I post this stuff on Twitter, and now I'm looking for what kind of follow through can the bulls put together. Can we see a bullish cross of the 12 period and the 26 period exponential on the hourly? Can we hold that exponential as support and see continuation? So keeping an eye on all these things. In the meantime, we are looking at the next resistance levels. And again, exponential resistance is the most important factor for me right now, but you can see there's a lack of resistance in this zone. So if the bulls can get over these exponential resistances, we're essentially just looking at psychological levels. So 63, 64, 65, 66 before we get to price action from where we dumped from. So just keeping an eye on psychological levels, keeping an eye on the volume, nice little bull volume spike. But again, have to be watching for the potential of significant follow through, have to keep 15-minute higher lows and higher highs going. And we'll see if the bulls can hold on to this bounce momentum into tonight. So if not in a bullish position at this point, by no means am I saying, you know, rush out there and buy bullish. It's just saying keep an eye on these shorts who are really cocky and going with the trend here. And they have been, you know, making a lot of profit, so they deserve to be cocky. But that's when we get this shift when, you know, everybody's looking one way and suddenly we're looking in the other direction again. So Ethereum on the daily time frame, a little bit more of a bounce. Inside bars are going to be forming here, but it's all about the 4-hour time frame for me. Here's the exponential resistance. We need clear 4-hour higher lows and higher highs. We established a 4-hour support, and I'll go back and get a Bitcoin support here in just a second. But 463.67 support, 481.74 resistance. And again, after that, there's a lack of resistance aside from this, the exponential resistance level. So we'll be looking up at 490 and 500 psychological. The Bitcoin 4-hour support to be watching. And really, it's just the hourly has some clear support levels. I'm looking at 60.60. And again, this is on Bitfinex just because I wanted to do the volume. Going to be a little bit different on Coinbase, which I usually do. But 60.13 and 60.60 are our higher lows on the hourly. Bulls just looking for another higher low into tonight. So the question is, how much bull volume can there be to push the price higher? Another thing that I was watching, again, with the shorts on the hourly time frame. So the fact that we saw the shorts so significantly higher on Bitcoin on the hourly chart, I mean, this move here, and I watched what does the price of Bitcoin do when this is going on. So we have shorts opening big position 622 at 2 p.m. all the way to 623 at 12 p.m. So I look at Bitcoin on the hourly. Where are we at 622 at 2 p.m.? And we are right here. So essentially, shorts started establishing significant positions when we were at 6,240, and then the price dropped down. And we didn't drop to a significant lower low compared on the daily level. Everybody's watching the 6,000 mark, and again, where we dropped from the daily, not a huge dump down from 6,100 down to 5,900. And what this stands out to me for is because the amount of shorts that were opened, essentially that's what's driving the price down here, the significant amount of shorts. If we were seeing that amount of shorts and longs liquidating their positions, it would have been a more significant dump in my opinion. So while noting that the significant shorts position was increasing, the fact that we didn't dump harder tells me the vast majority of this weakness was because those shorts were opening their position. And again, we're looking at anybody right now that was shorting in that period where that went up, where we went up so high on these shorts, they're underwater right now. Pretty much that started right here, and here's this price right now at that level. So anybody that shorted in that time frame is currently, unless they've already covered, they're currently in a red position. So let's see if they start to have to cover a little bit more significantly. So Ethereum, 4-hour time frame, exponential resistance, key support, 463.67. Checking in on EOS, huge dump to the downside. Congrats to the bears here. This was a really easy one just in terms of equilibriums. We know these equilibriums at this point, and it's just a low, high of the bounce, higher low, lower high, double top. As soon as this level broke 1019 or the double bottom down here, 1017, 1011, we had a bunch of supports in the 10 teens, and look at just the waterfall when it dumped, and we dropped all the way down to $8. So a 20% drop in less than 24 hours, or right about 24 hours, significant score for the bears. And here's our bounce attempt, just coming off of oversold, and we're watching the exponential resistance on the 4-hour. We're not at those exponential resistances, so that tells us the bounce is weaker than Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the major names, which are touching their exponential resistance right now. So very notable pullback. What does this do to the daily time frame? We're still in consolidation mode, and we're definitely following along with what the other names are doing in the cryptocurrency space. But this downside now, due to the lack of support on this weekly time frame, remember we shot up on the weekly from 540 all the way up to 23, did not establish much support on the way up. Here it is on the daily chart, just a straight shot up. So that means it's much easier to come back down because of that lack of support. The next clear support level is down at 780, and look where we bounced, 801. So just above this support level. We'll see if the bulls can hold it, but they definitely have a lot of work to do at daily exponential resistance, almost oversold on the daily. So pretty much now in the same boat as all the other crypto in oversold conditions, and we'll see if they can shift that 4-hour trend. Again, to be confident that a weekly higher low has been set, we need a daily trend change. We need a higher low and a higher high on the daily chart, and right now we are not near that happening. So bears in control here as well. BNB has been doing great in terms of holding up counter to what the rest of the cryptocurrency space is doing, but we do have clear resistance levels up here. We got close to a breakout, but rejected again. And look how many times we pulled back here, 14, make that 1748, 1744, 1720, 20, 38. So a lot of tops in the low to mid $17 range. And the bulls are just trying to establish support and keep going, keep giving it resistance, keep giving these resistance levels a shot. And uptrend, strong uptrend has been lost here. So at this point, there's no major red flags. Bulls ideally would have liked to have held 1516 or 1560, but we dropped down to 1516. And that's now attempting to be the new higher low. So as far as support goes, anything above 1340 will be just fine for the bulls, because worst case, it's going to give us an equilibrium if we do keep consolidating. But the bulls want that higher low to be found sooner the better, because that's less of a distance needed to get the bull break that the bulls are looking for continuation back towards that all-time high. So still looking just fine overall. Very curious to watch the correlation here to see if BNB can get some bullish correlation if Bitcoin daily momentum does shift a bit. Another thing that I'm watching, GBTC. So when I'm looking for clues, GBTC is how to get exposure to Bitcoin in the stock market world. It's the Bitcoin Investment Trust. And look back historically 2.5 years. Look at the daily RSI. We bounced off of 30, off of 30. This was actually more like 20, 28. So 30, 28, 30, 30, 30 just a couple days ago. And here we are at 31 as of Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, when this candlestick closed. So we're right down from at historical bounce levels, and we're either going to see something that has not happened in 2.5 years with another leg down and an RSI extremely oversold, or we're going to see the bounce that we have seen 5 times in a row now from this daily level. That's something I keep an eye on as well. I don't believe GBTC would be driving the market. There's not enough volume for that, but it's notable volume. You know, $36 million traded on Friday, roughly. So it is a factor. And we'll see if bulls are going to be buying this dip and bouncing and staying from oversold daily conditions again. Again, it's not something I would base trading decisions on, but it's another little piece of the puzzle as I'm looking for clues of potential signals that we could be looking for a little shift in momentum. So let's now, one more thing, Litecoin Bitcoin chart, LTC, BTC. Still watching this one because we are still crushed. And the video, we did get a stronger bounce on Litecoin initially on that first hourly candlestick from the bounce just after the video yesterday when I established the Litecoin position, but it since faded right back down. And the daily RSI is under 20 right now. And again, you look back historically, this daily RSI under 20 doesn't really happen very often in Litecoin. So we are extremely oversold comparative to Bitcoin. I'm watching for this daily RSI to cool off a little bit, and let's see if Litecoin can gain any ground on Bitcoin on this bounce now. Bullish reversal candlestick on the 4-hour. Again, I still have a Litecoin position at this point. I'd rather have a half Ethereum, half Litecoin position, but I'm not going to do any shuffling around at this point. I'm going to ride this one out because I am currently in the green on Litecoin and comfortable just watching to see, you know, am I going to get stopped out, break even, or small loss, or can this bounce get a little bit of follow through overnight tonight? And again, I'll consistently keep checking in on this pattern to see how the bounce is going and if we are still, you know, under 20 RSI on the daily time frame. So that's where we stand with all the names. We're watching 4-hour exponential resistances, keeping an eye on these shorts that are continuing to cover, and watching for short-term RSI levels. When they get extended, that's when bears are going to be making their entries. So 15-minute RSI overbought, looking at bears to make some entries there. We've got hourly RSI, not overbought. We're up in the 50s. And again, the 4-hour exponential. So pretty much 4-hour exponential is the most important resistance to be watching into tonight. And the bulls must maintain an hourly higher low pattern to keep a bit of that confidence. Could we see a bear flag on the daily time frame and just continuation down? Again, absolutely. I will be protecting myself against that. Again, I'm not calling the bottom. I'm saying I'm keeping an eye out for a potential shift that I could see happening at this point in time. So let's continue some story time. This is going to be a long video. So where we left off, I just finished, let's see, it was the road tripping with the 3 friends. The second half of the road trip, we stayed more in cities across the Southwest. We did, you know, Tucson, Dallas, El Paso, Little Rock, Arkansas, Columbus, South Carolina, just all the way back across the South Coast. So pretty much nature on the route on the way out, and then circled back and did cities on the way back because my buddies like cities more than I do. But I was fine with that. It was a good experience. Met a lot of cool people. Saw some cool bars and places to eat. So from there, I went and worked on a farm up in the middle of nowhere, Maine. And I did that for a year, a full season, and it was a first-year farm. And this was a young couple that I knew. It was actually one of the buddies that I'd road tripped with. His sister and her husband started this farm, and myself and the other buddy that we were traveling with were apprentices learning to farm. This was us diving in head first. Didn't have much experience, and boy, did we get a crash course. And it was the kind of scenario where it took a while to get the swing of things. And I knew, I can remember screwing up building the greenhouse and messing a thing up and them getting frustrated because we hadn't caught on yet. And I can remember saying, just be patient, we'll get it. And, you know, a month or two later, full swing of things. I might as well have been a 10-year farmer at that point, just picked it up and rode with it. It was like, you know, riding a bike at that point. So could compare that to trading and technical analysis where you reach a tipping point where it's really, really hard and it's really frustrating. And then as soon as it clicks and it starts clicking, it starts getting a lot easier. And that was my experience with farming. And so I've never worked harder in my entire life, and I will never work this hard again in my life. It was back-breaking work and not sustainable physically. So we were working on maybe 4 or 6 acres and just the 4 of us. And then the buddy dropped out. So it was just me and the couple. That was right when spring started getting going because it was too much work for him. I mean, one day we woke up at 5 a.m. and we planted potatoes with our hands from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. with an hour lunch break. So just insanity hours, driving to market, harvesting chaga. So chaga mushroom, if you don't know about it, check it out. It's great for tea. It's one of the You can't really eat it. It's a really woody mushroom. You wouldn't recognize it as a mushroom if you saw it, but it is great. Look up the health benefits for chaga. I highly suggest using it as a coffee alternative or just drinking it as tea on its own. It's harvested off of birch trees, and it was everywhere up there. So we made a little business. I guess that's the start of my entrepreneurial career, where we would harvest these mushrooms and break it down into tea, into little individual, 8-ounce, 10-ounce bags, and mix it with some chicory root and some cinnamon and make a tea out of it. And you could go out for a walk and get 20 pounds, and 20 pounds broken down into small little bags would be essentially, you could make a couple $1,000s. So it was all over the place, and you just had to climb the trees to get it. And check out chaga, and I do suggest the health benefits for that. They actually found this is a tangent, but they found an iceman, a caveman frozen in ice, and he had a tong, and they thought he might be a medicine man, but he had a leather tong, and there was a chaga and some other similar mushrooms on that tong. So there I am with a horse, Leroy, and had all kinds of animals. We had goats and sheep and dogs, and those were the 2 dogs where I had the fight breakup skills evolve. And a ton of vegetables. We grew everything that you could possibly think of, and I learned so much and got really healthy and in shape, and that's probably the most in shape physically and in terms of what I was eating that I'll ever be, because it was all, it's such a long trip into town. You eat what you grow, and it was an extremely good experience for, drive and motivation. I turned everything up a notch because the farmer that I was working with only had high gear, and then I adapted that as well, where I can't go slow speed. It's just all to the max, everything I have or nothing. So then after that year, I started my own road trip for myself out of the same Honda Civic for 7 months around the country, and I started in North Carolina. These are the Smoky Mountains for obvious reasons, and the first night, I want to talk about the first time that I started the trip, and I'm setting off on this 7-month trip. I have it all planned out loosely in terms of I want to go to this hot spring and this national park and these trails. And the first night, I'm all excited and I'm walking out to my camping spot and I'm a mile in, and it just downpours out of nowhere. And I mean like the kind of rain where you can't see 5 feet in front of you. So everything I have is soaked. I had no time to prepare in terms of putting stuff on to cover my stuff from getting soaked. So I just put my tail between my legs and walked back to the car and got naked, took all my wet, soaked clothes off, and just slept in my car naked that night. And I can remember thinking, what am I doing? This is really dumb. This is night number 1. I'm about to do this for 7 months by myself. Fear, uncertainty, doubting myself. And I ended up putting on some music, and my mood just instantly shifted. And it was like I started getting excited again, and this is no big deal if this is as bad as it's going to get, and I'm just sitting here hanging out waiting for the rain to pass. No big deal whatsoever. So it was a complete 180 of emotions, from fear and despair, and maybe that's what I'm talking about now, where we look for an oversold bounce. Fear and despair, quick flip to bullish on life and emotions, and from there it was a good start to the road trip. Smoky Mountain National Park, I think, is the most visited national park in the country, but I've been there maybe 3 or 4 times, and I've never gone without seeing a bunch of elk everywhere. And nice. This is a temperate rainforest, this area in North Carolina, so they have tons of plant diversity and a lot of rainfall. And so that's how I would get my water. They have this bag. I think it's from Kayak, Kayak, the brand. But you just scoop it up from a river, hang it from a tree, and within 5-10 minutes, you have your filtered water good to go. So drinking water from mountain streams was life-changing, just so refreshing, and it feels so good to do that, especially driving around Colorado where there's places everywhere to fill up your water. But I highly suggest a filter like that if you do travel and want to not rely on rebuying plastic water bottles or jugs or things like that. But it was just mushrooms are everywhere, and tons of plant life, animal life, box turtles. That was a cool looking dude. And waterfalls. So exploring waterfalls. From here, I would go through towards Kentucky, so I'll just leave that for the next time. This is my setup, just a small single-person tent, very lightweight, easy to carry, and I think my backpack was maybe 55 gallons, maybe a little bit bigger, maybe 75, or liters, I should say, not gallons. And I love this tent style because I believe this is a Eureka. and it's just wide open in terms of mesh. So you're laying there and you're seeing everything all around you, and it definitely feels like you're not really in a tent. So would suggest all of that equipment definitely performed very well and was easy, lightweight to carry. And this will probably lose some of you for wanting to travel. This is definitely an aspect of things. You're out in the middle of nature. Woke up one morning with this dude on my bag as I picked it up and flipped it over. And you definitely need to be careful for snakes and things like that. Seen plenty of snakes, but have fortunately never gotten bitten. And we'll talk about Kentucky and moving westward, Kentucky and Colorado perhaps tomorrow. I hope you all continue to do good things. Let's keep an eye on this Bitcoin bounce. Let's see what kind of pressure can be put on the shorts. Have to convince the shorts to cover their positions, remembering that most of them filled here recently on this leg up. This last leg up here, this entire short position was filled from here to here. So within this range. And we're watching now, can we force all of those shorts to have to cover? And you can see we're rejecting from where those shorts started to fill. So they still have some hope here, and some of them are probably holding out. If the bulls can get another leg up with some power volume behind it, that'll change the momentum short term a bit. Have a good night.